All right, Scott, welcome back to the show. I wanted to read to you before we get started some listener feedback about NVS fins.
Yeah, let's check it out. Let's hear it.
Said, Happy holidays, DLS and Scott Bass. As a devoted listener, I hear you guys raving about the C drive fins from NVS, so I thought I'd give them a try. Like any good fins, they come with a bit of a price tag. Nothing too crazy, but I was a little hesitant to pull the trigger. Then thankfully, Black Friday rolled around and bingo, 25% off, totally doable. Can't wait to try them. I was also trying to find something similar to a competing brand that I normally ride on NVS's website, but I couldn't find exactly what I needed. So I reached out to their customer service and explained to them what I was looking for. They got back to me immediately with a link to the exact set I wanted. Can't say enough good things about NVS. Thanks again. Keep shredding. Alan in Rhode Island.
All right, right on, Alan. Good for you, buddy. And of course, David and I, big fans of what Leif and Jamin are producing over there at NVS Fins, and um, they are slotted into my fin boxes as we speak. I've got
Great
new
qual
boards. I got new boards, new surfboards coming in.
great, great product, but it's the customer service. Fins can be a little bit I don't know, difficult to understand the design and the functionality and how that all works together. And so having access to the two owners of the company, um, who operate the rest of the business as well is super, super helpful. So big fan of the customer service aspect.
Yeah, good people, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
and the thing is, I'm kind of in a weird spot because I have all the fin companies are my friends, you know, like Chuck at True Ames and Vince at Futures, and they're all great people. And the guys at FCS, I mean, they're all great people, and they all make great fins, by the way. Um, but we're lucky to have Leif and Jamin support what we do, and we really appreciate that.
100%. Yeah, listeners, nothing but praise from listeners too. So surfnvs.com is where you go for their website. And then also another friend, realwatersports.com for any and all of your Christmas needs. You know what? Or water sport needs as well. On their website on the homepage, they actually have shipping deadlines. Like if you pay just for regular ground shipping, we'll get it to you. You have to order by this date in order to get it before Christmas. If you pay for the 2 day, you'll get it, breaks it down for you so you can purchase confidently knowing that you'll get the gift before Christmas if you buy it.
Do yourself a favor. Go into Real Water Sports, buy yourself a new surfboard. You deserve it. Life is short. Let's do this. Come on.
Print the t-shirt, Scott. Life is short. Buy a new surfboard.
Wow. That's a good t-shirt.
There you go. All right, let's get to the show.
As we see some movement at the takeoff zone, it's Kelly Slater grabbing right.
Yeah, guy. Yeah, guy. Everybody, welcome to Spit. It's the Spit Podcast. David Lee Scales, Scott Bass with you. We talk all things surf, a lot of surf news, maybe a few books that we may suggest, or maybe some TV shows that we're watching that have nothing to do with surfing. Um, but David, it's Monday, December 15th. I guess I should say before I say good morning, let everyone know. Thank you for being patient with us. I did have some stuff going on the last couple of weeks that kept me away from the show, but we're back and we're in full swing here.
So this today's show is to make up for last week's show. So I think we should do another one later this week.
I like it.
Get
Let's
back on
do it.
track.
Yeah.
Um, Look, while we're talking Christmas and Christmas gifts and the Christmas season, how do you like this new Adios and Aloha shirt, Scott?
Bros, are you kidding me? Adios and aloha. That thing's cool. I like that.
And you've got some boardroom show new merch as well. Um, all of this is available on jackssurfboards.com. So Jack Surfboards, first location, I believe, Huntington Beach. I think they have multiple locations now. But if you want to just go direct to their website and type in podcast in the search function, all of our t-shirts will come up. Probably have 6 or 7 different designs between the two of us, you and I. And
Yeah. I've got a support the surfboard industry message on one of my shirts, which is great because Jacks, you want to support Jacks.
absolutely.
And I've got one that's fish and chips design that has fish and chips on it. And that
Boom.
thing's cool. That I like how big and loud that is. And
So
yeah, go ahead.
I was just uh podcast, we've been late on merch. We should have been doing this for years. But
Yes.
thankfully, we've got a great partnership that made this possible for us to offer a bunch of different designs and to be able to update them frequently as well. So these won't last forever. This is basically a one-time run thing, and then we're going to do different designs a couple of times a year. But go now onto Jack's Surfboards website, type in the word podcast, and again, it'll link you to all of these. You could
Let
probably
me
type
see
in
the back. Let me
boardroom.
see the back of that one again.
So this is just a mishmash of different.
That looks like maybe Austin was involved in some of this.
He wasn't, but you're catching the vibe.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
cool.
so, anyways, I'm sure you can get these before Christmas if you order them quickly. So, check it out if you want some podcast merch.
Yes, good call. Well, David, let's see. We've got kind of a lot to talk about. I have a Who Said That, and of course, Stab dropped a new episode. It wasn't the electric acid surfboard test, but it was how surfers get paid, and some other stuff happening in the world of surf. But where do you want to start? You want me to try to stump you on a Who Said That?
You won't have to try hard, but yes.
Okay. Well, this is the portion of the show where I give a famous surfer's quote, and David and you, the listening audience, try to determine who it is. You ready? Excuse me. David, who said that? And I quote, young surfers are concerned only with stickers and freebies, and their first sponsorship deal is put right up there with losing their virginity. In the meantime, they're missing out on surfing. Competing is just a tiny sliver of what the sport has to offer. Who said that, David? Was it A, Derek Hind, B, Donovan Frankenreiter, C, Dave Parmenter, or D, Skip Fry?
I'm going to say Parmenter. Austin's bringing me. Look at this.
What do you get?
Okay. Sorry, listeners, to interrupt here.
Yeah.
Austin's home from school today because he's sick. And
Yeah.
so he's out there supposed to be entertaining himself. And he walks in the room with scissors
Yeah.
and kitty cat treats, and you could see how he's fumbled the scissors or the cutting of the package. Hey, no scissors. This is for adults only, okay? I'll cut it open for you. You can give them like three or four each, but I don't want you using the scissors when I'm not around. Sorry,
Tell me about
Scott.
the kitty. What are the kitty cat treats all about? Do those go to the cat or does Austin eat those? What's the deal here?
These are freeze-dried minnows, real, real
Don't
fish.
eat those, man. That
Are,
sounds pretty
are you gonna
gross.
eat these, Oz?
The kids were.
It tastes what?
The kitties were.
The kitties are. Have you ever tasted one?
Nuh-uh.
Do you want to?
But the only the kids were.
Do you want to smell them?
Good.
Smells good. All right.
Uh-oh.
Okay, just go give them like four, maybe three or four each, please. Sorry. I'm gonna go with Dave
Okay.
Parmenter on this one.
Yes, it was Dave Parmenter that said
Okay,
that.
good.
And I thought it was a good little quote, sort of kind of sets up the stab drop on how surfers get paid.
So I don't know if anybody cares. Let me walk you through my rationale
Yes.
because nothing in that quote I don't think was particularly represented. There was no clues that would say it's of this era, it's of this person necessarily. That could be a thought that any of those guys would have shared, right?
Yes.
Okay. But the manner of speech is why I picked Dave. I feel like Derek Hind would have been a little bit more flamboyant in his choice of words. Donovan Frankenreiter, I don't know. I don't think Donovan would have shared that sentiment. Actually, maybe that you can cancel him out.
Yeah.
So it's kind of down to Skip Fry or Dave, and there was just something about the um, concise phrasing that led me
Yeah.
towards Dave.
Yeah. There's
Matter
something,
of factness.
there's something stinging. Dave always seems to have the ability to kind of find a pain point and really succinctly kind of emphasize it.
Yeah,
And that part where he says, young surfers' first sponsorship deal is put right up there with losing their virginity. Skip Fry wouldn't say that,
that's a
you
good
know?
point. Yeah.
And
Okay, good.
yeah. Anyway,
So there were clues. There were clues.
a few.
Well, good. So I interviewed Jeff Devine. I'm going to
Hmm.
publish it maybe next week.
Yeah.
Um, and I know we talk about this as a known thing, and we've probably talked about it in different ways a lot. But hearing him speak about his 50-year career, it was very clear to me that the inception or the popularity and growth of those surf brands, the five big surf brands, really changed the way that the magazines operated. So because he had worked with the magazines for, since the beginning, really. So from the 60s and the 70s through the 80s, and then really with the boom of the surf brands in the 80s and the 90s, and how the influence of those brands, like there's two different shots that they're trying to pick between for the magazine. There was a there that at that time they started dictating, is there a logo involved in the photo? And Jeff's whole ethos prior was just how perfect is the surf, basically. And then where is the surfer positioned on the perfect surf? But it was really about perfect surf. And the turning point was, quote, the industry getting involved and growing. Now, other things became more important than the perfect wave, logos specifically. And then, beyond that, just our team of writers. So we want to make sure our guy is constantly being published with the photo, of course, but we have to make sure it's these guys all the time. And to his point was like, well, that's fine if they happen to be riding the best wave, then of course everybody wins. But if you're chasing contests and the contests have to run in a certain window, then of course you're not getting good surf. And so he said that in his era he never actually bent to those rules, and there was still enough value on good surf during his years, but certainly by the time he left the magazines there was a full transition. But I just thought that was really kind of interesting in terms of values.
Well, yeah, for sure. And a couple things. You know, what's sort of interesting is that all of the big brands at that time had guys on the Pro Tour, and that was the thing. And the Pro Tour was held in shitty waves, and they would get photos of shitty waves, and opposite of that, somebody went on a boat trip with Donovan Frankenreiter or whatever, and they're like, "We've got these insane photos," and this guy is a B or C level surfer on the say the Quicksilver team. The A-list Tom Carroll is surfing some crappy wave wherever. Which photo do we use? And everybody's drawn to the big, beautiful, perfect Mentawai wave with the C list or D list or maybe even unsponsored surfer. And then the marketing guys at Quicksilver call up the magazine and go, "Hey, we're giving you all this money to build this magazine. We want our guys." And eventually, what that led to was put your guys in good waves. And so the Dream Tour, it's not widely, sort of thought of like this, but the Dream Tour is a byproduct of editors and publishers going, "We need better waves for these contests because we're getting pressure from the sponsors. They want their A-list surfers in good waves. They don't even have time to do free cert to go on Mentawai boat trips. Let's combine the two. Let's create a dream tour. Why aren't these guys surfing at Cloud Break, surfing in the Mentawai, surfing at G-Land, yada yada yada?" Those forces are part of the reason why the Dream Tour was created.
Yeah, absolutely. And um if you look back at those magazines, I mean, he was talking about it didn't even matter who the surfer was. You know what I mean? Oftentimes it
Yeah.
was just so it was a total and complete change in terms of, yeah, just the way that everything was operated. But pretty interesting. I mean, again, you and I have talked about that era and the influence of brands over magazines over and over, probably over the years. But it's kind of interesting to look back at the totality of 50 years of work and to see a really specific shift in direction, you know?
Yeah, I went on a number of adventures with Jeff towards the end of his career at the magazines, and he would go, "Bass, let's go somewhere," and I'd be like, you know, I'd go, "Okay, let's go to Ponape, let's go to Ponape," and he'd be like, "Okay, who can we get?" And he would literally go, "Okay." He was fine with C-list surfers as long as the C-list
Yeah.
advertisers were in the magazine. Like, so you could get kind of C-list companies like, I don't know, I can't even remember some of the C-list industry companies, but there was we were
Flow hose.
okay, great example. Flowhouse. He'd be like, look, friggin', you know, let's get Austin, what's his name from
Austin Ware.
yeah, let's get Austin. Like we'd get these guys that were great surfers but weren't on tour and take them and we knew that their companies were like, yeah, let's get some photos of and of course the publishers were like, yeah, like Flowhose is buying half pages, full pages, let's do this.
Yeah.
And we would pick those B and C level surfers and they were psyched.
Yeah.
And away we went.
Well, I gotta say, this is something that those rules is something that the Surfer's Journal has never played by,
Yeah.
and that's why that magazine, to me, I feel like has stayed kind of
Well, it's
consistent.
not advertiser driven.
It's definitely not. And they also, but the focus is on adventure and finding good surf always. And so that's remained the same since the inception of the magazine. And, half the articles in there, actually far more than half of the articles or surf photos don't have any sponsor in them at all. Like the surfer riding the wave has no stickers on their board, you know?
Yeah, I would even say that you're right. Like part of their mission is, surfers in great ways. But as you know, that magazine's much broader than that. Like they're doing art, they're doing, articles on guys in the crappiest waves ever. I can't believe these guys surfing these waves, but what is it that drives them, or whatever, you know what I mean? So it's a very
Completely.
broad editorial position.
Completely. Yeah. Which I like it for that reason. It's always
I do too.
introducing me to new stuff too. You know
I'm a
what I mean?
big time
Like,
subscriber, and I'm a big fan. And I think it's kind of like surfing world. I almost feel it's an obligation to keep good surf journalism going by subscribing to some of these magazines. And I do that. And I do that outside of the surf world too. Like I'll subscribe to independent journalism because it's super important to the big picture.
yeah, totally agree. And what I appreciate about them, the Surfer's Journal specifically, is I feel like I have my ear to the ground with a lot of surfing stuff, and I'm interacting with people every single week. So I think I know storylines that are going on. Yet every time that magazine shows up, there's brand new people, adventurers that I'd never heard of before that weren't on my radar. It's like they are out there not breaking news stories, but definitely sharing stories of surfers around the world that I'm completely unfamiliar with.
Alex Wilson, the editor, I hired him as an intern at
Did you
Surfer.
really?
Yeah. He
Amazing.
immediately got away. He's like, as soon as he got in the building, he was like over to the edit side. Like I'd be like, I think one time he just came into my office. He goes, "Hey, I hope you're okay, but they want me to write stories for the magazine over here." And that's what am I going to do? I'm like, "All right, I'll get another one."
You broke his career. You broke Zach Weisberg's career. Any other
I wouldn't say
luminaries?
I broke their career. Those guys deserve, Alex Wilson deserves everything he's done. These guys were go-getters. They were going to find their way in with or without me. I was just, the door was open. I was like the easy entrance. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I did speak to my friend John Fowler, who I hired as an intern. He was with me for a long time. He's now my lawyer. And he's also
Amazing.
a really good friend of mine. And we catch up once in a while. I caught up with him when I was on the train down to San Diego last week. And we were talking about the old surf podcast that we did in the building. He was a big part of producing that. And he kind of reminded me of all the people that came through there on that podcast. And it was funny because his whole thing was I was surprised on the people that I thought would be really cool were complete jerks. And the guys that I thought would be complete jerks were really, really cool to me. And he went through a list of, quote unquote surf stars. And he sent me some pictures of us back in the day. And it's pretty fun.
Well, who are the jerks, Scott? Let's do it.
I don't want to throw
I'm
anyone
just
under the
kidding.
bus. I will tell
I'm
you
just messing with you.
who he was a big fan of was he mentioned Greg Knoll, how wonderful Greg Knoll was to him. He mentioned Bruce Irons, what a cool guy Bruce Irons was, how down to earth and you know um, he mentioned some others I don't recall and I don't want to butcher what he told me exactly, but those two stick out to me from our conversation.
Very cool.
Yeah,
Well, the style economy, Scott.
yeah, the style economy.
Speaking of personalities,
Yeah.
there's a few personalities in the style economy. The latest episode from Stab Magazine's How Surfers Get Paid series
Yeah, we had Joel Tudor versus Chris Malloy, Rob Machado versus Al Merrick, if you will, Matt Parker versus Josh Kerr. We had Devin Howard, Jack Johnson, Logan Dooley, and Darren Hanley, Britt Merrick providing insights that sort of coagulated a lot of what was going on in the episode and some Mikey February. It was great. I really enjoyed it.
Starting to think this Joel Tudor may have a chip on his shoulder, Scott.
Yeah,
I My experiences with Joel have been nothing but great. He's super kind to me and totally different than the person, or does not reflect the persona that we see in these pieces. But in these pieces, he leans in hard to the idea that nobody respected him or gave him the credit that he deserved.
yeah, it's in some regards you could say that um, you know, imitation is flattery.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Joel Tudor, and I just throw those Joel Tudor versus Chris Malloy. I just threw those out there as ways to kind of go through the topic here. But so Joel Tudor versus Chris Malloy, basically did Shelter the movie usher in the alternative surfboard era due to Joel's part in the movie in conjunction with the seedling and some other things. What are your thoughts on that? Is that a proper way to one of the things that Joel brought up that movie and his involvement in it helped usher in the alternative surfboard era? Is that a correct way to characterize that?
I believe that he fully sees it that way. That's exactly what he stated, is what you stated. I believe that he does view it through that lens, but I think that it was a confluence of factors. There were so many things happening. And the idea that Chris Malloy, because he explicitly states, first he implies, I'll break it down actually. Let me go back further. Chris Malloy was going to make Shelter. So he storyboards this thing for months or years, he says, collects music for years until he had a pretty solid vision of what that film would be. So he rents a farmhouse in Australia and goes there for 6 months or something like that. And different surfers come through during that time and he films them, documents it, and that's what becomes the film Shelter. Joel Tudor was one of the people that came through, and Joel implies that he influenced all of them with the boards that he was writing. But then later he doubles and triples down and says, go back and look at the ads that the Malloys were wearing before. And he does pinpoint them. He isolates them, uses their names. He's like, look at the clothing they were wearing before. Look at the clothing they were wearing after. Look at the boards they were writing before. Look at the boards they were writing after. And all of that may be true, but I'm saying there's an influence or there's a confluence of things that were happening at that time. Chris Malloy even says, we changed sponsors. We were with Hurley before. Hurley's aesthetic is what it was, bright, whatever, patterns and all that stuff. And then we were with Patagonia, and it's a very more subtle thing. Also, I think Joel's overlooking the Malloy's upbringing. Those guys grew up riding single fins, no leashes. They venerated Skip Fry, Bob McTavish, Reno, all these guys, the same guys that Joel was pulling influence from. So that is their foundation. So them revisiting it later in life, maybe Joel had some sort of, maybe Joel helped remind them of it, but that's part of their DNA. It wasn't like an epiphany to them. So, yeah, I think the Malloys were on a certain trajectory with or without Joel, basically.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I sense that Joel feels like the sort of less is more aesthetic that Chris Malloy sort of adopted for the Patagonia line of clothing and wetsuits within that surf category at Patagonia was I guess Joel's doing. And that does seem like a stretch. I'm not saying that there isn't influence there. I mean, obviously there's some influence if they invited him to be in the movie. There was probably a reason for that. And Chris, look, Joel's an incredible surfer and he's really fun to watch on film, and so I could see why you would want to bring him down there and introduce a new a new, sort of vibe to what it was. But the whole vibe was very kind of morning of the earthy and groovy and like it
Yeah.
wasn't like a high performance Lost video and they decided to shove Joel in the middle of it. The whole thing was kind of that groovy trip.
Well, that's why I said he had been storyboarding it and collecting music for years prior to Joel ever showing up in the production. You know what I mean? So all of that, the tone and all that, and he does specifically say we were emulating Morning of the Earth. That film was seminal for us, and so it was an homage, you know? So I think Joel fit in perfectly with the tone of that film, but I don't think that he didn't shift the tone of the film. It wasn't as if they were trying to replicate Taylor Steele's previous decade of work. They
Yeah.
were they were onto something new, and they had already landed on that conclusion. So yeah, I think Joel makes for great
He's an
entertainment.
he's an antagonist.
Yeah, he's
If
great. Makes for great.
you're making a one of these bits, you want to get him on film because he drives interest.
Yeah, and so I definitely find it entertaining, and his perspective's certainly provocative. But I'm curious, like I was stating at the beginning of this, is does he actually have a chip on his shoulder? Because whenever I've spent time with him or met, he's super kind and doesn't seem to be operating that way. But when the camera goes on, he plays it up for sure. So
Yeah, I don't know. You'd have to ask him. I'm not privy. I see him in the parking lot and out in the water, and he's very quiet and keeps to himself and does his thing and gets in his car and leaves. And
yeah,
I'm sure that he's obviously. I think that the way he portrayed himself was sincere. I don't think he was putting anything on. I mean, that's the one thing about Joel is you kind of know where he's at. Like he puts it out there. I don't think he
Let-
wears it on his sleeve.
well, let me ask you this then. Joel's way of uh, telling that story, that he was kind of the fulcrum that then influenced Bohr's ride anything movement kind of a thing. Was that the way you experienced that era?
Well, here's the thing. That's interesting, right? Is that regarding um, riding alternative surfcraft or fishes or longboards or round boards or eggs. For me, where I grew up in Del Mar, those boards never left San Diego. That's part of San Diego DNA. We've been riding those boards straight through the early 90s. I would never get one of those crappy, we couldn't ride those boards. So through the early 90s into the 2000s, surfers were riding fishes and longboards and eggs. Like
Yeah,
what's interesting is the surf media industry certainly did not acknowledge those designs. And you got
yeah,
to understand, Orange County, where the media industry was, that's where it was. I mean, there was two outlets basically for North America, Surfer and Surfing Magazine. And they focused on Newport and Huntington Beach and beach breaks and great waves around the world where you would ride those boards. And of course, they were focusing on Kelly Slater too, as well. So because of that prism that the magazines were looking through, it wasn't until like Steve Barolotti had to like pound down the publisher's door to get them to agree to do an article on the Bonds or the Campbell brothers or whatever. Like it took guys that were actually in San Diego that like myself that were working here, were from here, but were working up there to go, hey, by the way, there's this guy Steve Liss. He's pretty important.
yeah,
And and so a lot of it is through this prism of the surf
yeah,
media industry in Orange County and what they believed in, and what then all those surf industry brands that were up there too were like, Kelly, 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 and those things never left San Diego. Those boards, the alternative
yeah,
surfcraft. Now, I'm not saying that. Um, I am saying that I think a mass part of North America didn't understand it. Unless you were in San Diego, you didn't know, and I think that's kind of a big part of it.
yeah. Well, I loved having Chris Malloy in this episode. I feel he is a great communicator. I think his appreciation for surf history is a little bit deeper than a lot of other professionals of that era. And he's done a great job, kind of, I don't know, through his art, he's done a great job of kind of showcasing it and sharing it with the world. And then hearing him communicate at this phase in his life, I think he has kind of a more 30,000 foot global perspective on it all. And I just find him to be really, really insightful. So great addition to this episode.
I totally agree. Can't get enough of, I think all the Malloy brothers are super smart, super insightful, and they have a certain humility that's just really refreshing and nice, and they're brilliant, quite frankly,
I think so too.
regarding beyond even the surf world. I think that they're they're to be cherished here in what we have here. And the more Chris Malloy, all Malloy brothers, the better. And that's funny because I used to not think that. I had this like silly, like, I kind of felt like Joel, I think a little bit like no one's listening to me. So let me beat up on the Malloy brothers, which was just, silly of me and immature. But I eventually called them and apologized and made it right, which was good.
Well,
Um, well, let me
I
ask
was
you. Yeah, go ahead.
I was texting with Chris Malloy last night about something else, and I mentioned, I'm like, dude, your contributions to this are really, really valuable. He's like, oh, is that out? I haven't seen it. Maybe I'll watch it. I was like, of course, he hasn't even seen it.
Yeah. No, he's quick and witty and fun and intelligent. He has probably a little dry sense of humor there. That's great. And
Yeah,
you just sense that there's joy. That's the thing is like you just sense that there's joy in the Malloy brothers. And
certainly like a comfort in and a confidence in oneself and like satisfaction. You know what I mean?
yeah, he doesn't
Like
have to prove any points or anything.
just picked a life, designed his own life. He's living it to its fullest and just content in oneself, not
Yeah.
chasing anything.
Yeah. What do you think about this concept, since we're on the Joel and Chris thing here? I wrote this question for
Okay.
you.
Okay.
Should the free market economy that buttresses all that is pure in capitalism be regulated so that the surf industry limits how much money a person can make based on the number of world titles that they have, which is something that Joel threw out there. Like, you can't make more than this if you don't have a world title, which
No.
it's kind of goes against all that is American. You know what I mean? To
Look,
regulate how much money somebody can make.
I on the face, my initial answer is absolutely no, but there becomes outliers that I think
Yeah, but
makes me
so
feel
what?
otherwise.
Like, I
Well,
agree
let
with
me
Joel.
explain.
Like, let's say Target paid too much money to Kolohe or whoever it was that got way too much money. They never. That's for the company to decide how to lose their money. Like whether it's right or wrong, it's not our job to regulate how people do business.
That's exactly how I feel too. The only thing that conflicts with that for me in my head or problem I have is when you have um, like Elon Musk is about to become a trillionaire.
Yeah,
He will make more money than all of the teachers in America put together.
yeah.
So we don't in America like, and again, this
Should
is
trillion
now
should it be illegal to be a trillionaire?
that's a thing. I don't know, but what I do know is we have enough funds to feed everybody in America. There can be
Yeah,
nobody needs to
and
be hungry in America.
Argentina apparently as well.
Correct. But what we don't have enough funds for is to satisfy billionaires' desire for more money.
Yeah,
So we can never fill that. And those guys are going harder and harder every year. And at the bottom, there's people starving.
yeah,
It's like there becomes a point where you need to rebalance those things.
yeah.
And in surfing, I don't think we've ever gotten anywhere near that point. So we can still play in the space of capitalism works and yeah, go for it. If those companies think that is valuable for them to pay that person that much, then go for it.
Um, Rob Machado versus Al Merrick. And I just put it out there because it's not like there was versus Al Merrick, but there was this portion of the movie where Rob really wanted to try some other designs, and he sort of had to force Al Merrick's hand to build him his first fish. And I thought it was really insightful. I knew that Al was always about moving forward, and Channel Islands has always been about that. And that's because Al was the steward and the patriarch of the brand. But to kind of get more insight into Al's basically saying, no, I don't want to make those crappy boards. I did that forever, and I think somebody, I think Britt or Chris Malloy or somebody said, look, they trudged through that design for years. They know all about it. They've moved on to something that they think is better. All of that was really great, but it was really refreshing to see Rob kind of push the issue.
I thought so too. And the thing is, you said they don't want to make those crappy boards again. Specifically, they want to make high performance thrusters. That's what Al was all about. He was
Right.
about winning world titles, refining the Ferrari.
Yeah.
And so Rob said, I'd go to their house and they had this poster on the wall with boards from the 70s, a poster from the 70s, boards of the era. And he's like,
Yeah.
just make me any one of those boards. Well, I don't think that Rob wanted to start on one of those boards, but Rob wanted to alter those designs, I'm sure, once he got up and riding on them. And so what he ultimately did, he and Dan Malloy, was bring a Christensen fish in. And I think Christensen's a great example of somebody who is pulling a lot from the past, but then modifying and updating. So I'm sure that fish that Rob and Dan Malloy brought in wasn't a fully 70s fish. It was a modernized fish. You know what I mean? And so that's where he was looking to go. And to the credit of Channel Islands in the last decade or so, they've really invested heavily in those alternative designs.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny, the concept of alternative designs. Like, are they, there needs to be a better name for it
Yeah.
nowadays. But
Yeah. Well, I'll also shout out what an incredible salesman Devin Howard is because he always finds a way to shoehorn Channel Islands. He's talking about Joel Tudor and a certain era and goes, he's similar to like an Al Merrick or a Brit where they just always want to move forward. So him just like adding in those little details, you can't edit it out. He fits it in the perfect spot always.
yeah, Devin does a great job um, on, covering all his bases.
Yeah,
But he also does a really good job of, as I mentioned, sort of coagulating some of the loose ends of
totally.
how we got to where we're at.
Yeah.
It's funny, the the sort of like going back to those 60s longboards like Joel did, and Joel rides them incredibly. There's only so many guys that can ride those boards well. And even then, there's certain waves that those boards are made for, like Malibu or Cardiff or San Onofre. But those tail dragger nose rider boards, they're like I said, I can't ride them, and I'm, above average, I would suggest to you. And so I see guys that are just completely lame surfers, not lame, but just not, advanced surfers, buying those boards and trying to ride those boards when they could ride a 2+1 tri-fin with just a tiny bit of tucked edge in the tail, and they'd be having so much more fun. And I think that on some level, guys kept buying those tail dragger longboards because that's what they were told to buy. And then somebody goes, hey, why don't you try this 8 foot 2+1 from Mandala or Andrini or whatever? And all of a sudden they're riding boards that have a rail where you can set the rail on the bottom and do a bottom turn. And they're like, wow, this thing rips. This is insane. I can actually do a bottom turn. And so I'm suggesting that the mid length is sort of a product of those crappy 60s era longboards. And I'm saying crappy because I can't ride them. I don't mean, I just mean they're not performance oriented. They're even Donald was, Devin was explaining that Donald was like, dude, let's go forward. We're making these 2+1.
Yeah.
And Donald, I was riding for Donald. Those boards were insane. Those 2+1 in the pinks or whatever. And anyway, that's my hypothesis is that the mid length was a byproduct of those really crappy tail dragger longboards that everyone had to have. I tried to ride them. I tried to buy them. I would order them, and they're just, they're good for like angling in at an angle and just setting up the nose ride. They were basically, and Bill Stewart told me this once too. He's like, okay, yeah, what's everyone doing? We're just setting up a nose ride. And there's more to riding the wave than setting up a nose ride. And oh, by the way, you can set up the nose ride and go
Yeah.
fast and do roundhouse cutbacks. And
Yeah.
Bonga, you watch Bonga in good waves. I mean, they're not riding those tail draggers.
Yeah. No, very good. And yeah, Devin even said, look, even when Joel was riding those boards from Donald, he on the weekends off to where nobody was watching, he was still riding the 60 stuff too, you know,
Yeah,
when the waves called for it or the location called for it.
and it's one of those things where like, Joel can pull it off. Joel has a talent that's super rare.
Yeah.
And so, but my point is that kind of got sold to everybody. And,
Yeah.
there's some guys, some young guys that rip can do it, the Birches of the world, but the majority of surfers shouldn't be on those tail draggers because they're not
Well,
getting on the nose. That's the thing. It'd be one thing if they were actually pulling it off, but they're wearing leashes and
yeah.
running, and they're never getting there.
One of the things I did like this episode a lot, by the way, and the main reason I think is it was secretly a surfboard episode.
Exactly. I totally
It
agree with that.
it's called the style economy, so I thought that they were going to be talking about um, the clothes that people were wearing or something, but it really wasn't. It was almost entirely about surfboards. So that's what I loved about it so much. The other thing that we always love about these episodes is that they get people to reveal their salary. They actually give you the figures of what they were getting paid in a given contract. So the Malloy brothers, apparently, back in the Hurley days, after they left Billabong, went with Bob Hurley and kind of at the peak of their influence there or profile there. They were making $250,000 a year, $250,000 a year each from Hurley. When they transitioned to Patagonia, they were getting paid 110. So a major price cut to go with Patagonia. Joel Tudor was sponsored by Diesel, the denim company, which I forgot about, but
I
they were,
didn't even,
you didn't know?
I
I
mean,
remember,
my point is like that didn't last long, or I don't remember. Maybe I might have been out of the picture. I was sort of out of the picture for a while.
well, they were giving him $80,000 a year. And Joel told that story of how that happened. And he was begging, I think, basically for 50 or 60,000 bucks from traditional surf brands. And they were kind of laughing at him, like, no thanks. And then Diesel wanted just to get into surf shops, basically. And so he had a meeting with the guy, and the guy had three different phones. He wasn't even paying attention to Joel, and they offered him 80,000 bucks without even thinking about it. So Joel took it, but he also said that created a little bit of drama for him.
Well, that was
Um,
also a byproduct of these Orange County surf media. The surf media did not want anything to do with longboarding. Joel was so good that he was sort of forced into the situation. You couldn't ignore him. You know what I mean? And then,
mhm.
of course, when he got some sponsors like Oxbow or whoever that was throwing money at the magazines and buying ad space, they were going, "Hey, how about Joel? Like send Joel
Mhm.
on some trips or whatever."
Well, Rob Machado, I thought this reminds me of how smart Bob Hurley was, where Rob Machado coming off of tour, being a little bit adrift, pun intended. Um, Basically, Hurley, he had some contract offers that were all like incentive based for contest results and stuff. And Bob Hurley just pulled him aside and was like, "Hey, how about we just pay you just to go surf? Just surf every day. Get up and go surf." And so that opened up a whole new chapter for Rob's career that we know and love. And they were paying him 400,000 bucks just to surf. So I
And
thought that
Bob
was,
Bob Hurley's one of those guys that's just super generous. Like, you know, he's one of those guys that it, I wish more people would model that sort of um, philanthropy, I guess I could say.
yeah, you could.
He's just a good human being. Like, and if I don't know if Elon Musk, I'm sure he gives money somewhere. It's none of my business, but
Well,
it'd be nice if he solved the healthcare issue.
yeah, no kidding. So to your point, Chris Malloy was saying when they had a negotiation with Bob, Chris came in with a number that he thought was kind of gaudy, like, "Oh, I'm nervous asking for this number." And Bob laughed it off and said, "We're going to pay you more than that." He just said, "Look, we were planning to pay you this. You undercut yourself. We're going to pay you the full amount."
And then
So
when he
that's,
sold the company, he brought him in and cut him a check and said, "Hey, you were a part of my success. Like
I
I'm
forgot
not,
about that.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's and that's pretty awesome."
totally.
Bob's a sweet, good human being, and there needs to be more. If we could all be a little bit more like Bob Hurley, we'd be a better place.
Totally agree. So the kind of back end of the episode, they start talking about surfboard royalties, which I thought was a pretty revealing conversation too, because I've heard numbers at times, but
Hmm.
they kind of just put it all out there. So
Yeah,
Matt Parker from Album, they started paying Asher Pacey 80,000 bucks a year plus royalties. And he explicitly stated this made me love Matt Parker even more than I already
I
did.
totally agree with this, by the way. This was my big takeaway was I even more like I've always liked Matt. I dig his whole trip and I'm a huge fan. And I don't mean to interrupt. I know I interrupted you, but that
No,
was
it's
my
okay.
big takeaway. Like good human, same like
Yeah.
Bob Hurley level, good human being.
So he says from the get-go, we pay all of our employees fair living wages. Like from the sander to the shop, the guys running the shop, all this kind of stuff. We want to make sure that they're fully invested in this thing. We want them, and for the professional surfers, how can you do your thing if you can't afford to travel the world to the best waves in the world? So we support them, you know? And so we made sure Asher Pacey has a livable salary and we get him the boards that he needs. And Logan Doolian chimes in from Snapped 5 and he goes, yeah, it's crazy. Anytime we've gone on a snap trip, Album offers to cover expenses for their team riders. You know, he's like, we
Yeah.
don't have that anymore.
Yeah.
So I think uh, for those reasons, I'm like, I love the way that Album has built their business, and their boards aren't cheap, right? Like they're known for being kind of higher priced boards, but now as the consumer, you feel good about it. You're like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's not like one person at the top is lining their pockets. No, it's that you have to support everybody in the company for the company to have long-term viability. And
Yeah.
skilled, crafted laborers who don't go and work a different job. You know, if you pay them, then they can hone their skill and develop their craft and be better at their craft.
Yeah.
So I love that they're operating under that model.
Me too. I was a big fan of that part of it, and I had put in our notes, as I mentioned, Matt Parker versus Josh Kerr. So maybe we should take a quick break and then we'll get back to that.
Let me go check on the big boy.
Welcome back,
Thank
Spit.
you. Welcome back to you. Um, yeah, so you want to hear about Matt Parker versus Josh Kerr?
Yeah.
So what I will say is really I was very impressed by the high road that Matt Parker took. He did not say a lot. Meaning there's a lot that he did not say.
Yeah.
Um, the way that the storyline played out, or the way that it's played out publicly, was Josh Kerr rode for Album for a certain number of years and then abruptly didn't. And he introduced his own line of surfboards, and the boards' aesthetic and designs themselves very much looked similar to Album's. And so I started getting a lot of messages from listeners when that happened, maybe 3 years ago. They're like, what's the story here? Like, what happened with Josh? Is it amicable? Like, what's going on? But his boards look like just they look almost exactly like Albums. Or as Album said, a cheap knockoff of Albums. And so I asked Matt about that 3 years ago when it was all going down. And Matt told me, maybe not the full story, but he gave me a lot more uh, of the details than he revealed in this episode, basically. And so I thought, I'm like, I feel like the way Matt could have said more than he did, but he didn't. And he actually, I thought, spoke positively even about Josh and about Draft. And so Draft is the name of that board brand. So again, I thought like, wow, incredible. He comes out looking like smart, long range thinker, runs a tidy business, pays everybody fairly, seems like a great guy that makes incredible surfboards. And I thought there was no real value to sharing the dirty details, even though Stab would love to get it. You know what I mean? And we would love to see it as fans. There's no real value to it for Album. And so I really thought he did an incredible job.
I agree. Totally agree with your thoughts there. And sometimes saying nothing says a lot. And um,
Well, and Josh Kerr said nothing, by the way.
yeah,
They
he
asked
was,
Josh to comment, and he's like, no, thanks.
yeah. So that was quite interesting, right?
Well, the one thing that Album did say more than I just said right here was Album wanted to expand their business to Australia. They were shipping boards to Australia, but they didn't want to continue to ship boards to Australia. So what they did was they set up manufacturing in Australia, and Josh Kerr was the one who was going to oversee the manufacturing. And so and then Matt said basically once he went to check in, it was like there was a bunch of it wasn't being operated to the same level of quality as their California stuff was. And so, they had to cease production or at least change the managing in the Australian factory. And
Yeah.
that's when Josh then parted ways and started his own thing.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Like you said, the Matt Parker, um, is just a good guy and good for him.
Totally agree. Uh, and it inspired me to order a board. I think I'm gonna order. I think I'm gonna order a board from him for Nicaragua.
Good for you. It's funny. I was sort of inspired I was like, gosh, I should, I cannot get another board. I got too many boards. I got boards coming in. I'm going on all these trips. Maybe this is a good time to talk about waterways.
Yeah, it is actually. We have 2 spots left on that waterways trip to Nicaragua in April. Again, we're going on 2 different weeks. I'm going to host one week, and then Scott's going to host the second week. This is because the resort can only handle about 10 people. We wanted to have more than 10 people come. So the week 1 is already fully booked out. Week 2, there's only 2 spots that remain in April. So reach out, waterwaystravel.com. Is where you go to their website. I think it's Chris, but Chris is just spelled CRIS at waterwaystravel.com. Chris is the one organizing this for us. So if you want to reach out directly to him, or if you reach out to one of us, we'll forward you to him and you can get in on the trip. But what'd you order?
I ordered a board for Nicaragua.
What'd you order though?
Well, I think I told you I ordered a board from my friend Nick at Rome
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Surfboards.
yeah. Yeah.
And he's so funny. I was like, look, here's what I want. And David, you might remember the board I took to El Salvador.
Mm-hmm.
It was a Sunset Surfboards that Todd McFarlane made me, and it had single concave throughout. And especially right at the tail block, I had him put single concave in. And it's because I wrote a board from a guy at Lowers, who's Rosie Hodge married to. What's his name?
Ian Folke.
Yeah, so Folke's father, I think it's Bob Folke. Bob Folke. He let me borrow one of his boards, and it had a ton of concave through the tail block. And it was so fast. It had so much lift. I really dug it. So I had Todd McFarlane make me a board like that. That's the board I took to El Salvador. As you recall, I left that board with somebody there in El Salvador, and I needed one. So I go, Nick, make me a board with single concave, and I want the concave to run through the tail. And he's like, okay, but that's not what I'm really kind of doing. I'd rather this board over here is way better. I was like, dude, I just want what I told you. And he's like, okay, I'll make you your board. And he made me the board. And he's like, your board's done. And I went to pick it up. And he's like, but I also made this one. This is the one that I wanted to make you. So, and then the one he wanted to make me, it was like starting to make sense. I'm like, okay, yeah, actually, maybe I should just leave this one behind that I ordered and just take the one that you made for me that you think's the best option. Because Nick's a great surfer, and I respect like his sensitivity to how the board's going to respond. And he's like, dude, this one will be just as fast, but it'll do this a little better, and blah blah blah. And so anyway, I got 2 boards from Nick at Rome Surfboards, and by the way, his boards are insane. I almost ordered another one. I'm going to Indo this year too, and so I wanted an Indo board, and he's got some boards that all of his, how it is. Like if I go to Christensen's, all the boards look insane. If I go to Nick's at Rome, his showroom, all the boards look insane. If you go to Album's showroom in San Clemente, do they still have that up there? You
Yeah.
go in there, all the boards just like it's tough to be a surf customer. It's easy to just want it all.
No, I
So
agree.
anyway,
I mean, look, I wanted to get a tri-fin for Nicaragua, and same thing. I found 3 on Christensen's website that I want. A couple. I had 10 different things, but then watching Matt Parker speak, I was like, you know what? I need to get a Parker. I need to get an album. Just that kind of solidified it for me. And there's a board from him, the Jack Freestone's model. It's called the Free Wing
mhm.
that I was eyeing 2 or 3 years ago, and I just never got it because I don't need more surfboards. But now I have a reason to get one.
Yeah, I highly recommend. I know you didn't do this, but go to the showrooms,
Yeah.
and check them out. And there, a lot of shapers these days have their own showrooms because they just realized the surf retail market, there's only so much floor space, and those are taken up by the big, the CIs and the loss and all that. But man, it's fun to go into one of these showrooms, and there's
Yeah.
just because you're right there with the shaper, all the boards are there. There's no, like you're talking to the real deal. So pretty powerful to go into these showrooms. And Nick's showroom's great. And his wife next to it has a studio where she makes ceramics. So I had her make me these new coffee mugs, these 20 ounces.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It's a lot of coffee. Um,
Yes, it is.
well, one other, not that we need, I feel like we're doing our recap of this episode of How Surfers Get Paid is longer than the episode itself.
Oh my God. That's horrible.
But there's a little side note of Michael February trying to get coaxed by Hayden Cox to go ride his boards. So Hayden offered him 65K a year plus boards to ride the boards. He didn't take it. He stayed with Channel Islands and still is with Channel Islands. But I interviewed, have you seen the brand Symmetry out of Australia?
No.
It's a kid named Max Stewart who's making those boards. He's been working with Tom Carroll over the years. Really, really great, smart kid, super savvy. Boards look epic. He came up in Hayden's factory. And so in my conversation with Max, we spend probably 30 minutes kind of going through that process of like starting out at Hayden before Hayden was manufacturing overseas, like learning the craft, and watching that brand grow to the level that it's at now. Max was like there for it. So it's kind of interesting to hear his thoughts and insights about it. So I'll be publishing that, I think, this week on Surf Splendor if anybody wants to hear that behind the scenes look.
Cool. That sounds interesting for sure.
Yeah.
And I'll just finish up with this regarding this episode. And I think Rob touched on it, but style has always been the number one thing, and it will always be the number one thing. And style didn't just get invented, you know, Rabbit Kakai, these guys, Duke Hanamoku, these guys were the original style masters. No, maybe not the original, but the ones that we know about through imagery. And back in the ancient days of Polynesian, there was guys that were super stylish, and those are the guys I'm assuming that all the other Polynesians were like, wow, that guy knows how to get it done. Like there was a Buttons Kalui Kalani, in 1550 that was ripping somewhere, probably castles, outer castles on an Alaya or a Ulu or an Olo or one of those boards, and just you know what I mean? Like style is what we're all drawn towards the dance, which is why we're drawn towards the Machados and the Dave Rostoviches and the Clay Marzos and the Kelly Slaters, quite frankly, and the Tom Currens. I mean, these guys have great surfing styles. They're just beautiful to watch, and it's never going away, and it will always be the number one sort of aesthetic, I guess that we know. It would be. It's the number one. What is it, David? Help me out. It's the number
Value,
value. Thank
virtue.
you. Thank you. Yes, that we all look towards, and it'll never go away. And even if at some point competition removes style from the equation, believe me, we will let them know that they've blown it,
Well,
and
Rob
they
said,
will they will adjust.
no, Rob gave that exact story. He said they did remove it from the equation
Right.
in the ASP rulebook at some point, and that's when he just took the rulebook and threw it and was like, we're effed from this point on, basically. Once you disregard style, what's the point?
Well, right. And my point is that look, the the competitive arena can disregard style if they want, but they're going to lose in the long run because style's never leaving, and style's the number one virtue.
Um, I think it might have been on the comments section for that exact episode, but down in the comments, somebody said something about John Florence, or it didn't even say John. It was some other example of a stylish surfer at a high level. So has sold, Chloe Andino has sold infinitely more board shorts than Adriano de Souza ever has. Adriano has a world title. I think Adriano also has a pipe masters. He has all these kind of competitive successes that look like he achieved more in his career. But what do surfers want? And or what are they influenced by, I should say. And that's an example of Kaloe does. I mean, I think almost objectively has better style than Adriana de Souza.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it
For
just
sure.
translates.
Yeah.
So, um, I agree with everything that you're saying. And I will say one additional thing. Well, actually, before I do, I used to have this game when I was a teenager when I first discovered surfing. Me and my buddies would watch surf videos, and there was certain
Hmm.
I you would it was like the pause button test. And specifically, Rob Machado was the best surfer to do this with. You could pause the VHS at any moment that he's up and riding, and it's worthy of that photo screenshot is worthy of being printed in the magazine. Doesn't matter what position he is on the wave, doesn't matter what type of a turn he's doing, if he's transitioning between turns, what portion of the bottom turn he's in. It's all so photogenic that you could print it and love it. Whereas a lot of other surfers, you could pause it somewhere and it just looks, they could be a beginner. You don't
Yeah.
even know if they're a beginner or a professional because of the way that their body's contorted.
Yeah.
And then if you get it when they're doing an air, you're like, okay, cool, that's a cool image. But 99% of the time they're riding the wave, it's not photogenic. Rob, 100% of the time he's moving, it's photogenic.
Yeah. That's an interesting thing. That's a cool little game you guys are playing there.
Yeah.
We should play that with ourselves. Hell, I see static images of me and I just look like an idiot. I can't imagine how bad the video looks.
Well, the other thing that I was going to segue out of that conversation with was my favorite current surfer of the moment is Jai Glindeman.
Mm.
I don't know if you watch this kid, regular footer from Australia, unbelievable style. And like not only rides high performance shortboards, but mainly rides high performance shortboards. I think he's getting boards from Paizel maybe. Um, but he just looks so effortless in what he's doing, and he's doing really critical things, but with almost the same amount of body motion as like Wayne Lynch on a single fin back in the day, except he's putting his board into crazy positions on the
Yeah.
wave.
Yeah.
So it's really something to watch.
Cool. Jai Glindeman.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's been around a little bit. He had an
totally.
edit, a stab high or a what are those stab edits called? Edit of the year.
Oh yeah, probably did. And he did like a surfboard test with them a while back, but it was just like three boards. It was a short version of the electric
Mm.
acid surfboard test,
Uh,
maybe during
oh.
COVID or something. But yeah, he's been around for like maybe close to a decade, but I'm a bigger and bigger fan any clip that I ever see of his.
Well, what else do we got?
The Nazare event, which you probably didn't watch.
Okay, here's my experience with the Nazare event. I got the alert, green light, it's on. That morning, I guess it was 2 mornings ago or yesterday morning, 2 mornings ago. I turned it on. I didn't see a wave ridden and I was only going to give it 15 minutes. All I was people talking and the results, the current results, and a leaderboard thing and an empty beach and waves breaking, but I saw nothing and they did not hook me at all. I'm not saying it
Yeah.
wasn't fabulous. I know it was incredibly huge and mind blowing and courageous and jaw dropping and all that, but from an end user standpoint, I was bored.
Yeah, I did not try to watch it live, but I did go back and watch the post show, the highlights and all that sort of thing. And no new ground was broken. It's a tow event, and the waves were huge as they tend to be there. There were some really, really wild wipeouts, as there tend to be there. But yeah, there was nothing groundbreaking from this event. But Lucas Chianca and Justine Dupont took top honors for the men and the women. And then as a tow team, Nick Von Rump and Clement
Rump?
Rosero,
Did you say
Rosero,
rump? You said Nick Von Rump.
sorry, Nick Von Rupp,
Rupp.
and I'm going to get the other guy's name entirely wrong. Clement Rosero were
Mm.
the tow team that won. But one thing that I was reminded of is that you and I do not give any credit nor never acknowledge the greatness of Chumbo, Lucas Chianca.
Yes,
The guy is incredible.
he is.
And he is constantly a standout at these events or just any of these massive swell events. Everybody references him as the guy
Yeah.
who's leading the charge always. He has the gnarliest wipeouts in this event, two insane ones. He also does like big turns on 60-foot waves. Everybody else is always kind of like obviously just trying to make the wave and survive. He's doing chop hops. He's like hitting the lip, doing carves under the lip. I really feel like he is light years almost ahead of almost everybody else out there. And then he was the one responsible for saving Carlos Burley 2 weeks ago when we talked about that crazy
Yeah.
situation there.
Yeah.
So Lucas Chianca, Duke
Totally agree.
status.
Totally agree. Underrated. I wonder if in Brazil he's getting lots of
He did, yeah,
sponsor dollars. He's getting all the, because he's kind of like the Kai Lenny of Brazil, basically.
he's not, yes, he's not underrated at all. It's you and I who have
Right.
never once acknowledged
Well,
him.
no, we acknowledge. I mean, we don't talk about him ad nauseum on the show, but we've known who he is. I mean, like we've talked about him. But
We
maybe you're right. Maybe he deserves just this moment now to go, okay, everybody sit quietly in his brilliance because he is a brilliant big wave
we
and regular wave surfer.
we mention his name when he's involved in something, but we never mention the fact that he stands head and shoulders above virtually everybody else who's doing the same thing that he's doing.
Yeah, there is like a big gap, right, between one and two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Kai Lenny's in that conversation for sure, but I think Lucas is right there with him.
Yeah, Lucas has this vibe like he's having fun. Like, you know what I mean? Like he's almost
Totally.
toying with it, which is kind of what Kai Lenny looks like that too. Like he's toying with it a little bit.
Yeah. Do you want to see a couple of submissions for Wave of the Winter real quick?
Yeah, wave of the winter. It's happening, man.
Well,
Right?
they're getting killer surf.
Did they get some sponsors?
Oh yeah, they got $100,000 in prize money.
Good stuff. And Liam McNamara deserves credit for bringing this thing to
Totally.
forefront here.
All right, can you see my screen?
Yes.
This is Ivan Florence, I think a day or two ago. Crazy drop, crazy spit. How good is Ivan Florence the last couple of seasons?
Ivan Florence is the man. He's incredible. He's
Look at
kind
this.
of like Lucas. Like, I mean, we do talk about him, but it's easy to get overshadowed with those other two brothers. But these brothers that come in threes, these Malloys, these Godowskises, these Florences, who am I missing? These kids are incredible. These men.
I'm gonna close that one out, and I got one more that I want to show you because it was really impressive. Interestingly, so this one's by Monaloo Chandler. Kid's only 17. And unfortunately, Wave of the Winter is limited to 18 and older. So this doesn't even count, but it's worth acknowledging. This backdoor runner just barely gets under the lip, one pump in, and just a
That was insane.
long one. 17 years old.
Yeah. Is he from Kauai?
He might be. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Chandler brothers. He has a
There's
younger
a
brother too.
Chandler clan from Hawaii that's a very famous family.
Yeah.
That's an insanely deep one.
Deep and longer than a lot of backdoor rides. So shout out and thank you
Style.
to Liam McNamara and the Wave of the Winter crew for feeding us this
How
stuff.
did
Just
they, how does somebody, they have an Instagram account where you can see all the Wave of the Winter submissions. Why don't we give that out?
just follow the Instagram account. That's the best way. It's it's not the word the, it's duh, Wave of the Winter, and there's underscores between each word.
So just do a little Google search. It should pop, I mean, a Instagram search and it should pop up.
Yeah, Wave of the Winter.
Okay.
And then, of course, acknowledge to the Surfrider Foundation, who's fighting the good fight constantly and providing you data about amount of trash collected, number of coastal victories. They had 44 coastal victories, definable, measurable coastal victories in 2025, 1,000 over the course of their 41-year history. So if you depend on the ocean, support the Surfrider Foundation because they're fighting for it, protecting it.
Yeah.
Surfrider.org.
Yeah, absolutely. Good stuff
My,
with the Surf Rider.
My must-see moment presented by Treeswax, treeswax.com. Use promo code SPIT to get 20% off and money back guarantee online. And this is, of course, petroleum-free surf wax made from rocks and trees. Um, is Sterling Spencer's interview with Tom Curran.
Yeah.
Did you
Yeah.
get into this at all, or did you see the
I
Instagram
saw
clips?
little clips of it that Sterling put out on Instagram, but I didn't watch the full thing.
So Sterling, Pinch My Salt is the name of his podcast slash YouTube show. And Tom Curran was in town doing like a shop tour thing and then stopped over for an interview with Spencer Sterling. And it's incredible. It's the best Tom Curran interview I've ever seen. And
Yeah.
Tom, I think this is a tribute to Sterling's style of interviewing. And I think they know each other fairly well. So, but he kind of lures Tom into a sense of comfort, and Tom opens up and is very funny, shares some really great stories, shares some really great insights about surfboard design. They talk about his skimboard, Super Dave, that he's been riding and boards that he's ridden in the past. And Sterling basically sets up a slideshow, a PowerPoint presentation, and they go through photos and images of different parts of Tom's career, and Tom goes deep and long.
That's cool. I want to check that out.
It's really worth watching.
Yeah. I got to remind myself to watch that. I want to see that for sure.
It's
Can't get
about an
enough
hour.
Tom Curran.
It's about an hour long, and you don't need to sit for 1 hour staring at the screen. But if you're working on something and you just put it off to the side, you'll be entertained, and then you'll glance in
And
every minute or
Sterling's
two.
thing is it on YouTube?
Yeah, you could just search him or Pinch My Salt is the show. And click that subscribe button, Scott, so that they always feed it to you every time you log on.
I'm such an old man. It's funny how like when you're younger, you can totally do technology. And it's the same exact technology you were doing when you were younger, but as you get older, you're like, how do I do that?
Yeah.
Oh man.
I saw last night too. It looks like Tom's in Virginia Beach now on his East Coast tour, and he was at the wave pool, the new wave
Oh,
Atlantic Park, I think is what it's called.
okay.
And the water's cold and booties, hoods, gloves, all that sort of stuff. But he just surfs so good. Like he gets this little wave, and it wasn't a super sick wave or whatever, but just the way that he rides it, you're just like,
You know
man,
what's cool about, and this is the first time I've pulled up Sterling's thing, but he's got the Hanky Warner surfboards right there, front and center. That
Hanky was good
Hanky goes
friends.
way back with his dad. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Maybe even his granddad.
Hanky was coming out there all the time. So Sterling's known him since he was a kid, and they actually developed a model together, which is probably that board. And I also wanted to get one of those. Maybe I do need to get one of those now that I think about it. I think it's called the Centaur.
It's a fish, right? It looks wide.
I
I
think
can't.
well, the Centaur is a quad, and it's not fully, I mean, it's fish-esque.
Yeah, right. Yeah. All
So,
right. Well,
but big shout out to Sterling.
I'm gonna check this out.
Sterling stuff's always great, but this is the greatest.
Good, good. All right. Well, look, David,
I,
we've
I
said a
didn't men-
lot. Oh
I
yeah.
didn't mention it, but let's just drop this real quick.
Oh,
drinkag1.com/surf.
you
I
know what?
guzzled this while we were talking.
This is the time of year when these little flu bugs can sneak up on us. We can catch a little cold here or there. So the AG1's crucial for vital nutrients that everybody's body needs every day. So AG1 is part of our daily routine. It's simple, it's easy, and it's great for you.
I abuse my body in other ways and add additional calories and bad things to my system, but at least I got the foundational nutrition at the bottom and the base to make sure I'm getting what I need.
Amen, brother.
drinkag1.com/surf.
Well, look, David, we've said a lot. Lots been said. We've talked a lot. Things have been discussed. There's been discourse between us. Until next time, adios and aloha.